Hey, Greg.
Hey, Sam.
How you doing?
I'm great, thank you.
Cool. Welcome, everyone, to the first episode, don't know what that is, of the B&A podcast. It's going to be a series. It's been coming up. We're going to be interviewing colleagues, artists, clients maybe, friends, and discussing all things B&A, all things illustration, photography, murals, CGI, everything in between, to hopefully give you a bit of an insight into what we do, who we are. B&A, as some of you may know, is a talent management agency. We have offices in New York, London, LA, Sydney. We have friends in China, and currently potentially have some new friends in other regions. More to come on that, maybe episode 9. I'm Sam. I'm the Global Brand Director for B&A. I've been here at B&A for 11, 12 years. If you're watching this in 2 years' time, then longer. I've been an agent for 24 years, so I've been an agent longer than I haven't been an agent. I love my job. I love who we work with. We had a fantastic team. And we're very lucky to be here today with the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Gregg Lhotsky, who's been an agent even longer than that. And Greg has recently retired after 30 years at B&A. A milestone for anyone, a milestone for anything. And today we're going to have a chat to him about agent life, about B&A, about his story, photography, how that's developed, the way we do what we do as agents, but also the creative industry and how that's evolved and changed, and maybe some of the cycles that we've seen in amongst that. So Greg, how did this start? What made you get into this weird and wonderful world?
Well, I mean, I really started on the stock side of things. Those of you guys that don't know, stock is really, the reuse of images that have already been captured. And I worked at a couple of stock agencies in New York. I brought Photonica, which at the time was a Japanese agency, to America. If regular stock agencies had pictures of, people in red and yellow bikinis drinking flower drinks on the beach, Photonica had what it felt like to be those people. I created them in America, signed all the photographers, did all their catalogs, did all their advertising, and at the same time, I got involved with an organization called Photographers and Friends United Against AIDS. And we put together a portfolio of all these famous artists, and they were shown at ICP and at major museums around the country, and then it was auctioned off at Christie's. And so this man found out about me, Jim Roig from Outline at the time, which was a stock agency for celebrity stock, and he wanted to open up an assignment business, and I opened up for him, and that was the beginnings.
Wow. And what year was that?
Oh, God, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
I mean, rewind totally on that. Like, obviously now you think of stock and what have you, and it being a digital asset that maybe you download, you go to a website. How the hell did stock work then?
Photographers sent real images to the agency that somebody sifted through and edited and put them into the files, literally like file cabinet.
So this is before digital.
Yeah, totally. I worked for a company called FPG. They literally had a whole floor of a building just with file cabinets with pictures in them. So,
wow.
8x10 black and whites to, little, Kodachrome type of things. And there was a whiteboard that basically an agent, a salesperson, took the call from a client, put it in a box that a traffic person ran it into the research floor. They put it up on a wall. People had to grab them off, and then we went through the files looking for pictures, like to put them in a basket that somebody then typed up and was messengered to the client.
I love that.
It sounds so dinosaur-esque.
No, it sounds. To be honest, it sounds like there's more of an art attached to it in many ways. There's like.
It was really picture editing. Really, the researcher, was picture editing. They were using their own creativity to pull pictures that met whatever that brief was.
Incredible. Yeah, because obviously now part of our wider group at B&A, we're part of Great Bowery, and we have Trunk Archive, we have Gallery Stock, who look after the collections of some of the biggest institutions and photographers around the world. It's such a different business now, right? So what, did that give you this passion for photography?
Well, we jumped ahead, right? So I went to art school, I studied photography, I minored in printmaking. When I first got out of school, I did some graduate work in art history. Didn't really want to know what I wanted to do, but a woman that I went to college with, I became better friends with her mom, and we opened up a pet food supply business in Maryland.
Okay.
And I became the largest seller of Science Diet on the whole East Coast. A guy found out about me and brought me to New York to do veterinary like PR work, which I did for a few months, and then I was let go because it was a stupid job. And I answered an ad literally in the newspaper, and that's how I started working at FPG, a stock photography agency.
Oh, wow. Okay. How do all these experiences like end up as being an agent?
I mean, I hate to be sort of like, oh, in my day, I walked to school in my bare feet in the snow type of thing. But I think I think that life sort of is a journey, right? And one path leads to the next, and you find your space. I didn't want to be an agent. Howard used to come to these events that I used to do in New York. They were called the last Thursday of the month. I forget what they were. But basically, I would invite, art directors and photographers and stylists and clients and other agents, and we'd like hang out at a bar or club or something on the last Thursday of the month, and it was a great community thing. And Howard would come there, and he was like, "This is cool. You should be an agent." I'm like, "I'm not Willie Loman. Like, I'm not going to do this." And he was like, "Yeah, but you're doing all this stuff to sell. You should really sell and make money off of it," which is what happened. Honestly, it's really the simple version of it.
I love that. And I think what's interesting there is that the full circle of that, because I think industry-wise, exactly those sort of events are what people are missing. We're now doing First Thursdays. We've been doing them in London. We've done them every month. And it's interesting, the people that turn up to those. It's been more the more senior folks. I don't mean senior age, but like senior from the creative industry have come in because they miss that connection with each other. Those happy moments, those chance encounters where you get to see someone in their moment doing their thing, where suddenly you meet someone that's doing something completely different, and hang on, there's something in this. So that's super interesting that it came off the back of that, because I feel like that's something that's been missing from the creative industry for a while, but we're trying to bring back at the moment. So, okay, you had that conversation at a party. I'm assuming you may have had one glass of wine, of course, only one, lots of water. Then what? Was it straight to B&A, or was there something in between that?
Well, I mean, there were lots of meetings and conversations to sort of get me to really come on board at B&A. And it wasn't until I went to Midtown. Of course, my whole business had been downtown here in Soho. And I was like, I'm going to Midtown. This is weird. To meet the original two founders of B&A, which at that time was called Bernstein and Andreuli. So I met Sam Bernstein and Tony Andreuli. And, they became sort of like my grandfather and my uncle. I went to go meet them, and I realized that when I was in art school in Maryland, I interned at a photo studio in Maryland. And there was one Friday when I had to clean the studio because they were very nervous because the New York agent was coming. And that New York agent that came was Howard Bernstein.
Oh, brilliant. There you go.
So I didn't realize that until I met Sam and Tony, that I had met all of them when I was in college.
That's cool.
So this to me was like, this is kismet. I have to come and work at the space.
Love that.
When I first, you asked me about my first day there, but I inherited a group of talent that I had to decide, am I going to keep them or grow them or make them my own? And it almost was like, the movie from, Jerry Maguire, where I was left with one talent who was like, oh, geez, am I going to make a go of this or not? But then I was given the leeway to find talent on my own. And I found a photographer who at that time was sort of really making it happen. They were, at the time shooting for Martha Stewart, which was a big deal, and Condé Nast Traveler, and which is also a big deal at the time. And I took them on board and really made their career. And so much so that at the time, that's when the magazines were, very lucrative, and they were giving out contracts. And I got them a contract with Condé Nast. My first, couple months out of the box, if you will.
Straight into it.
So I think that was sort of a proud moment.
Great, I love that, and it's something we're talking about, bringing back some of these different ways of doing things. Like the internet was not a thing. How did you go about finding photographers? Was there a process? Was there a specific way of doing that at B&A, or did you have a way of doing it yourself? What was where were your places to find photographers?
I think it's a great question, because it's something that has changed exponentially, not only in our business but in the world.
Yeah.
So I went out. I literally went out every night and met people and went to industry events. Of course, there were a lot more industry events at the time, and met people and spoke to this person, spoke to that person, and I mean that's how it happened.
Yeah.
It wasn't like combing Instagram or combing the internet because it didn't exist.
Yeah.
I mean, the funny thing is that again, I'm going to sound like the old man that walked to school in my bare feet in the snow type of thing, but like we literally got paper layouts that were messengered or FedExed to the office, which then we had to make copies of and send to an artist who was like, I don't know, shooting in LA or shooting in France. Like everything was so much slower in that space.
Yeah.
You would call somebody and like leave a message for them with their receptionist. And then, you would go down the hall to have, go to the bathroom and go and have lunch, and you'd come back. There was a stack of pink messages like, oh my God, I missed that call from that lady I was waiting to hear from, like all day long. It was a little sort of quaint, so to speak.
Well, I don't know about I feel like there's a bit of a thread here, there's this human aspect to it, and I think that is probably where the agent comes in the relationship between a client and the artist, is that there's a human that can broker the deal, but also is out there hunting and looking around. Like, I think when I started, it was a fax machine, and end of every day, you'd all do your posts that had to go out, like, what have you, but also we had one computer, we shared that, like, together. Emailing a brief is definitely never going to happen. I would get a fax. It would say, Sam, call me, number. Sometimes a stick man was something funny on there to like make me think about what it was. Or Sam, get on your bike, come and see me. And I would cycle around London and go see people. We'd sit down and we'd talk about it. That's how relationships were built.
I think there was a lot of creativity in those layouts. I mean, somebody actually sketched them out and colored them and drew them, and like this is an idea that's going from their head to through their arm to the piece of paper.
Yeah.
Which was really cool. I mean, looking back on it, because there was something sort of simple about it, but also something that was incredibly creative. The creative process was much more involved in the space.
Yeah, I think that's something that's a bit of a DNA of B&A as well, though, is that all the agents there's a creative aspect to the way that we operate. So not only being entrepreneurial and trying to find new areas of working, but also there's that way of helping a client where they can come with the corner of an idea, and then it can be expanded out by the creative brains and their connections to the people. But I want to go back to like going out and meeting people and stuff like that, because obviously that was how you found the talent. Equally, like with clients, like how did that work? Were you handed a list of clients to work from, or did you have to go and find people? Like, how do you find clients back in those days?
I literally pounded the pavement.
Yeah.
Like, hi, I'm Greg. I'm new at B&A. I'm the new agent. Can I come and see you? Yeah. Like, I literally had to rap on doors.
Yeah. And how many? And that was face-to-face meetings. And what would you turn up with?
Portfolios.
Nice.
Like, that's another thing. Like, you'd get a call and somebody'd be like, hey, we need an artist to do X. Like, who do you have? And I'd say, Tom, Dick, Harry, Jane. And they'd be like, great, send me their portfolios for this project. And we would go in the back room and put a portfolio together. Yeah. So going back to the magazine thing, like magazines were a big portal to get an artist into the business. So you'd have tear sheets. So you'd take the tear sheets of the magazine and place them into the portfolio pages and create a story, and that would match to what the client wanted. Or if a talent had portfolio prints or slides or whatever, like we would literally bespoke make them for the client.
I remember that exactly. I mean, we kind of do a digital version of that now. We have mood boards and what have you, we can send them. But I do think there's something, I was going to say romantic, it's not the right word. I think it's something special about knowing that when you, because similar to me, I used to go and hand deliver those. That was part of the deal. I'd go into a dispatch and I would say, can I speak to the client? The client would come down. We'd discuss what I put together. And there was an art to that. There's a craft to that. You had to have a beginning, middle, and an end. It couldn't taper off. That first image has got to be that knockout right. I'm in the right place. And there's a bit of a personal touch to that, wasn't there?
It's like, there's got to be an arc to your portfolio. Like there's got to be this bang up image in the beginning. There's got to be a high point in the middle and something that end, in the end. Because, if you thought about how people looked at portfolios, we used to do different tricks, like, put a promo card in the middle, and like, if you got the portfolio back and it opened up and that thing fell out, it means they never looked at it, type of thing. People would look in portfolios and they'd be talking to somebody else and drinking a cup of coffee, and you never knew, like, were they really looking at what's going on? So you really had to create a story and an arc to the portfolios.
Yeah, it's funny. We get a lot of submissions, like a lot, and quite often we'll invite an artist to come see us. And I think we've definitely been mean over the years, but there's something that this notion of curation, of this like the confidence of putting together that many images, even though there's God knows how many behind that, but this confidence, like no, this is 20 images, this is me. We get it now where people will turn up with an iPad, will either just try and show us their website, fine, but we're trying to find out something new, or open up their photos and have 10,000 images and say, look at this. I think that art of curation is something that needs to be rekindled by folks. I think it's really important because I think Instagram and the social channels don't help that.
Listen, it's a different world, right? So
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want this to be like, again, I walk to school in my bare feet type of thing. But like, it changes. The business changed. You're talking to me about what was like in the past, and that's what it was like in the past. But it's different now, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it'd be remiss not to talk about like some of the big projects you've worked on over the years. Was there anything that you were super proud of, or anything that was like, a big moment for you in your career?
There's been so many, and I feel very fortunate and very grateful. I mean, I've worked with some amazing, amazing creative people, not only the artist side, but the client side. And I've always been fascinated about how things work. You always try and tell, your family, your friends, like what you do for a living, and people are like, oh, like, do you represent wedding photographers? Like, no. Do you see the cover of the magazine? Like, we did that. Or do you see that billboard? We did that. Or see that TV commercial with the Super Bowl? Like, we did that. And then people sort of understand to that aspect. And I guess they also don't understand really like what goes into it. Like it's not just a client and a photographer. It's a stylist and hair and makeup artist and an art director and a producer and and the caterer, like, and set designer, all those things that make that sort of picture of happy people drinking a flower drink in a bikini on the beach happen. Listen, I've been very, very lucky. I mean, I've met tons of celebrities, politicians, people of note, supermodels. I've worked on Marlboro campaigns, car campaigns, numerous things, which they all sort of wind together. But each moment was great because it was a win. It was a win for the client. It was a win for the artist. It was a win for everybody.
Are there any like campaigns that were like, okay, I made it, I've done this?
If I think about the production value, was really on the Marlboro campaigns. I mean, this is, hundreds and hundreds of people with live horses and animal handlers. Again, this is before digital and before drones and all that type of stuff. I mean, this was like physical things with like real live cowboys riding horses, in the desert to get like the perfect shot.
Wow.
I mean, it was really just kind of bananas.
When was that? Was that
about it in the 90s?
Wow. Okay. Wow.
And you could still do cigarette advertising.
Big productions.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
And were you on set? Did you go and look at that?
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, it was cool.
Did you ever take any pictures?
No.
Okay.
No.
Did you smoke cigarettes?
Maybe.
Probably.
Elliot asked me last night about changes in the industry that I've seen, big shifts. And, the big shift, of course, was from analog to digital. Everybody's freaking out. It definitely changed the industry, and obviously people coddled to it after a while, but it was difficult because people weren't used to it. People, there's sort of something precious about it. Like you didn't really know what you got, right? Other than having a Polaroid that was on set that you shared with the client that they then brought back to their office and showed people, and then there was a sort of 7 to 10 day period that you waited for the actual negatives to come back that you were made into proof sheets and stuff. So digital sort of sped that up, right? Like it was instantaneous. You got to see what was happening, and a lot of creativity could happen on that set. But it was a big marked change in the industry because people were really freaking out. Like, what are we going to do? How's this going to happen? We're going to lose our creativity. We're going to lose our craft. But then we moved on. And now people are freaked out about AI, and it's still meant to be seen what's really going to happen with AI. I mean, it's changing every single day, right? And the technology's changing. Is it going to put people out of business? Sure, it put some people out of business when it went from analog to digital, but there's going to be other people who are going to embrace that and just make it another tool in their toolkit.
Yeah. So when that happened, was it that the artists were concerned? Was it the clients were concerned? Was it like, what was part of your process to help the artist in that?
Well, in order for them to be modern, they had to figure out how to use digital and be part of it. I mean, similar but different when artists had to also be able to do motion. And in the early days, people were like, oh, I'm not going to do that. I'm not a motion person. I'm a stills person. And when some people tried it, they were pretty sophomoric about it. They didn't understand that motion was a sort of a depth thing, you know, rather than sort of like a panoramic type of thing. But now every photographer today, you know this of course, I mean, they have to have motion as part of their toolkit, otherwise they're not getting a job. So it's just sort of progressions in that space.
I think it's one of the forgotten parts of the agent role, is this like part of the agent's role and that team is to be ahead of the game on new technologies, new directions, trends, or seeing what's out there and being able to feed that back to the talent, you know, whether that's to protect them and their practice, but also to maybe help them develop.
Yeah, of course, that's totally an agent's job, to hold their hand and take them into a new space so that they keep on going, you know.
That feels like there's a Greggism that could be attached to that. To those folks out there that have met Gregg, you will know there's many fun Greggisms that come out from occasions, but I think something that's definitely become a big part of our DNA, and I think it will be forever, is this notion of giving your 100% or your 50%. Where did that come from? Is that you? Is that like B&A? Like,
I honestly, without sounding egoic about it, it's really just, it's always been a part of me. Like I'm gonna dive into the deep end of the pool and make it happen. Maybe that's part of my inner drive. Maybe that's something that obviously I expected out of people around me, but I guess I helped them in that space. Like, you know, you got to give it your all. Like you're all for this. And I think one of the things when we used to meet talent, I'd always ask them, you know, it's like the classic interview question, like, where do you see your career? Where do you want to be? And at the time when people were like, oh, I want to have the cover of Vogue and I want to be in Vanity Fair. It was like, yeah, you and like 8 million other people. How are you going to get there? How are we going to do that together? I think part of my responsibility as an agent was to really, again, give 100% of my 50%, but that's what I expected out of the talent. Like, we're in this together. We're going to, if you want to be on the cover of Vogue, then you have to work as hard as I'm going to work for you to get to that space.
Yeah, it's a true partnership, isn't it?
Yeah, totally.
It's a true partnership.
So Sam, let me ask you a question. I mean, you know, look, I mean, you and I have worked together for a long, long time, and we sort of became work husbands. Now that I'm closing this chapter in my career and moving on to the next thing, like, what do you see? What do you think, you know, the future is? I mean, you've always been very enthusiastic and very energetic and super supportive of the creative process and certainly the talent as well. What do you see as sort of the next, where the industry is going?
Yeah. Well, I think for B&A, it's the global nature of what we do. You know, it's something we've strived and worked on hard, particularly post-pandemic, which is a time when people suddenly weren't in offices, was putting the team together, getting everyone talking to each other, but also allowing each of the agents to know each person's skill sets, so enabling us to help the clients more. We've noticed more this past couple of years, clients want us to help them and be complete solution providers. And it's something we've got good at. You know, we're able to package a team. Hybrid projects are becoming more and more of a norm. Like, you know, mentioned earlier on with motion and stills. But then that's expanding out now more to, there might be a motion aspect, a live action aspect, motion graphics, pack shots, CGI pack shots, and then an experiential part. What we've got good at and what people are coming to us for now is, they're like, I just want B&A to help me. Like, can you put all of that together? And I think we've built a team and a group of artists that enables us to do that. The other part of that is community, and that's with our artists. And I think artists represented by B&A feel that they're part of that community, which enables them to feel the confidence to reach out to one of their peers and say, hey, I can't do that. Can you help me? So I think that's, for me, something that I think is like very important and that we're seeing a lot of is that globalization. It's like, example today, I've got a client in London who needs to do a shoot in Australia with an aspect of it in London. We have a team in Australia who can handle the production there, that I'm connected to, that I can talk to very quickly, very easily. That client in London only has to phone me. All of that's just going to happen for them. I'm on their time zone. It's easy. And it's the same way we have agents all over the world. Like, you know, we always assign the best time zone to where the client is or where the artist is. And that's all about helping it make it seamless. So that's where I see the future, is just community sticking together, but also being human as well, you know, because it's like, we have a lot of artists who've dug into AI and they're making beautiful work. You know, it's their models trained off their body of work. it's art. We have other artists using AI to become part of their workflow, their work stream, whether that be storyboarding or idea generation. But then we also have very analog artists, and that will always live and strive and continue to grow and be exciting. That broad reach, but also the opportunity for people to talk to each other, that's the future for me. Cool. Humans.
Cool.
We see ourselves as a global company, and we meet as agents, as a global team, every single week. We talk about the industry, we talk about our artists, we talk about what's happened and what's going to happen. And because of that and our network and this communication, we're ahead of the game. It's all about information, and that's what we're gathering at the moment. So part of that agent role as well is to ensure that our artists are prepped and poised and ready for action when a brief comes in. Something that maybe that feels a little bit missing, donut hole, another Greggism. Taking more creative risks, I think there was a time, and again, I don't want to keep saying this, I don't want to be the kid walking in the snow, but I think taking creative risks, trusting the artists, finding the right person for the job and trusting them to do that, everyone's going to get a better result from that. You're going to have an engaged talent who's just going to be like, fuck, this person gets what I do and I am the right person for this job. And I think there's a bit of that, the aspect of risk-taking, the trust in the creative process and that true form of collaboration, because that's one of the best things ever. When you see an artist and a creative director, art director, whatever role that is, truly come together and create something new that no one's ever seen before, that's alchemy. That's a moment. That's a creative moment, and I think that's something I would love to see more of. Is that risk taking, but also that kind of like the pushback. I know there's that thing the client's always right, but that's sometimes that creative and artist. Sometimes it's good for them to say to the client at the other end, like, no, this is right. You got to listen to us, and that's something I would love to see more of. Creative risk taking, bit of fun as well. Don't get sucked into the data. Just like trust the instincts. Get creative instincts. The first idea is usually the best idea.
I'd like to see that people understand that it's a craft, and that each person who's on the set to make that image is an expert at their craft.
Yeah.
So whether it be from the agency side, the creative director, the art director, the copywriter, to the photographer, to the assistant, to the stylist, to the hair and makeup artist, to the set designer, they're all bringing their expertise to make this image, which ultimately, this is one of my Greggisms, but like we're making pretty pictures so people buy stuff that they don't need, but it doesn't diminish what people are bringing to the table in terms of their craft and their professionalism to make that happen.
They're bringing their 100%.
Yeah.
Gregg, thank you so much. Obviously you are retiring, but you are a creative person, and you have a six-pack, which is something to look after. But do you have any other retirement plans other than looking after the washboard?
I think it's about exploring. I've always been a curious individual. In my brief sabbatical period, I did volunteer work, and I took fencing lessons, and I hate to say this out loud, but now I'm going to do pickleball. I want to take classes, I want to explore, I want to be open my mind to whatever. And I think that's something that has been cool about my experience, my career, is that there was always something different. One of my other Greggisms is I was either a dog or a hero, depending on the phone call that came in, And so, we talked about the illustrious things, the billboards in Times Square, the magazine covers, the Marlboro Man stuff. But I did my fair share of crap beverages and pharmaceuticals and, toilet paper accounts, so to speak. But I looked at each of those things with curiosity, because there was something got involved in that. Some creativity, So I'm always going to be a person who's going to be looking for something to sort of enrich myself with.
Love it. Well, thank you, Gregg. Thanks for everything.
Thanks, Sam.
30 years.
Yes.
You loon.
Yes.
Please subscribe. We're going to do tons of these. We'll probably get better at them. / definitely we'll get better at these. We're going to have a ton of different people coming in. We're going to be all over the world doing these.
You're going to edit this, right?